The province of Newfoundland and Labrador adds ankle bracelets as an option for bail conditions. Conservative MP shares AI-generated stats about the capital gains tax rate. 2 active U.S. military members try to become conscientious objectors over genocide in Gaza. Over 1,000 people died in Saudi Arabia during the Hajj due to extreme heat. And protests continue in New Caledonia over coming arrests of independence activists. Good morning. It's Tuesday, June 25th. I'm Nora. Here are your headlines. Okay, I have to start with 2 big pieces of news that didn't even make it into the script because of when the script was written and when I'm recording it. Julian Assange is free. Julian Assange is free. He's accepted a plea deal. He has now been given credit for time served, and he's a free man. I am so excited by that, and I am so happy for him. I honestly can't wait to hear from him and hear about what he's thinking and what he's saying and what is next for the man. And the second thing that I'm so excited to tell you about is in literally an hour from now, between now and tomorrow morning, which is when you're listening to this now and this morning, I will be going to the airport to see the family that we are helping bring to Canada from Gaza. It is, it's been a really stressful day. The family missed the first flight that they were supposed to be on because of how much time they were kept in immigration, but they made it through. They're on board. They should be landing in Quebec City in the next hour, and I'm doing this and I'm heading right to the airport. So 2 really amazing pieces of news to share with you this morning as you go about your day. Now, let's start in Newfoundland and Labrador, where the province is set to introduce ankle bracelets as an option for judges to add to bail conditions. The province's Justice Minister, John Hogan, said that the measure was introduced with intimate partner violence in mind as a possible deterrence for committing crimes while on bail. Writing for CBC News, Ryan Cook reports that the addition of better monitoring of offenders suspected of intimate partner violence has been something that advocates have been calling on the government to do for years. It comes after there have been several cases of intimate partner violence, including a case where a man was accused of killing a woman while he was on bail. He was initially charged with allegedly assaulting the same woman. Next, Ontario Conservative MP Ryan Williams took to Twitter the other day to criticize the Liberals' increase on the capital gains inclusion rate. That tweet included a list of capital gains rates for G7 countries, with Canada having the highest rate at 66.7%. The problem is that the list was made up. Williams had used ChatGPT to create the list, and it was completely wrong. CBC's Darren Major and Serena Mohan caught the tweet and contacted the MP for comment, but unsurprisingly, they haven't heard back. This comes as experts have expressed concern over the use of AI in the upcoming U.S. election and potentially the Canadian election too, and as governments are lagging behind AI regulation. Now, in the case of this tweet, he actually had the ChatGPT logo there, and the statistics were so obviously wrong that it was pretty easy to debunk. If you're curious about the capital gains inclusion rate and what that all means, I have to, especially now that I'm chair of the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, point you towards their research. They actually go through how much average Canadians are paying in tax and how very few of the wealthiest people are going to have to pay a little bit more in tax with this tax change. Next, in the U.S., 2 active Air Force members are looking to leave the military service to become conscientious objectors because of America's continued support of Israel in the ongoing genocide in Gaza. This comes months after the then active Air Force member Aaron Bushnell self-immolated in protest of the genocide. Larry Herbert and Juan Betancourt said that they were inspired by Bushnell and have officially requested to become conscientious objectors. The 2 men told NBC in an interview that they hoped by publicly talking about wanting to become conscientious objectors, they would encourage other active members to do the same, and that it would help put a stop to the U.S.'s support of the genocide. American weapons have been used in attacks in Gaza, including on a United Nations-run school, according to reporting from earlier this month. Next, news update from last week. Now the reports are that more than 1,000 people have died as a result of participating in Hajj in extreme heat earlier this month. The Hajj is an annual pilgrimage that Muslims undertake. You will remember that. Every year, millions of people travel to Mecca in Saudi Arabia to complete the pilgrimage. Because of the number of people who travel every year, there is an application process, as I've mentioned before, to perform the pilgrimage. But you have to have your applications approved through a lottery system because so many people want to go every year and then be authorized to travel. And each country is given a specific quota of Hajj permits. Despite the efforts to include safety measures to organize the millions of people who descend on Mecca every year, there are usually a number of deaths that result from the pilgrimage, and it has become increasingly dangerous in recent years because of the extreme heat. You will remember that heat reached 51.8 degrees Celsius. According to the Saudi Health Ministry, most of the fatalities were unauthorized pilgrims, with 658 being from Egypt and a vast majority of those being unauthorized. In reaction, the Egyptian government has stripped 16 tourism companies of their licenses for facilitating illegal pilgrimages to Mecca. And finally, to New Caledonia, where protesters have burned police vehicles and blocked roads after France detained several independence activists. New Caledonia, you'll remember, is a semi-autonomous French territory in the South Pacific. Tensions on the islands have been high since May when France approved reforms that will allow French residents who've lived there for more than 10 years to vote. Indigenous Kanak people of the islands opposed electoral reform because they feared it would, according to Al Jazeera, quote, dilute their vote and make it harder for any future referendum on independence to pass, unquote. French President Emmanuel Macron suspended the reforms earlier this month after protests erupted. Independence activists were arrested this week, and that is what sparked the latest round of protests. Christian Tien, who's the leader of the Field Action Coordination Cell, or the CCAT, was arrested and deported to France, or, as Al Jazeera says, transferred to a jail in mainland France, as if mainland France is anywhere near South Pacific New Caledonia. The decision to deport 6 activists has shocked and inflamed the protesters. Daniel Goa, who is the president of the Caledonian Union, said this. He was, quote unquote, astonished that the activists had been transported to France. Tien had actually met with Emmanuel Macron when Macron had visited Nouméa last month. Macron's visit intended to calm some of the tensions in New Caledonia. Those are your headlines for Tuesday, June 25th. I'm Nora. Can you believe it's almost the end of June? I mean, time is just going too fast. I can't believe it. It's Tuesday. It's Sandy and Nora Day. So you're going to get a new episode of Sandy and Nora in a couple of hours. And today's episode is about the Temporary Foreign Worker Program and how unbelievable it is that the number of people working through that program has doubled since 2018. You're not going to want to miss it. You're going to want to share it, and you're going to want to get active after you hear it. I promise you. You are listening to this podcast at sandyandnora.com, on the Real News Network podcast feed, and anywhere you get your podcasts. I just went through the national holiday of Quebec, so I'm obliged to wish you all a bonne fête nationale, happy Saint-Jean, and enjoy your short week, Quebec. Canada, your short week is up in a week.